Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Lynn Wagner, and you are listening to The Wealthy Life. Today, I have an awesome guest. So one of my patients actually recommended that I reach out to her, and I thought, what would be better than having her on the podcast so you could learn about her as well? Her name is Kyle Maiorana, and she lives in Asheville, North Carolina, and she is a dietitian first. So she has a Bachelor of Science in Nutrition and Dietetics, but then she went on to become board certified in Integrative and Functional Nutrition. She's a certified gastrointestinal nutritionist, and she's a certified culinary nutrition expert. And what all that means is that she knows a lot about food, and not only about food, but what food does to your health, what food as medicine really means. So on the show today, we talk about her journey from traditional dietary work into being a functional and integrative medicine dietitian. We talk about what types of diets she recommends, how she works with her patients, and we have some amazing pearls in there that I'm going to wait for you to listen to, but I know you're really going to enjoy it. So welcome, Kyle Maiorana, and enjoy the show, guys. So I'm going to start with one question because I thought it'd be a good one to start with. I have had so many patients who are told that their symptoms have nothing to do with their diet and lifestyle, like over and over again. And I think based on your website, I think you were one of those patients as well.
Yeah, for
Tell
sure.
me about that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is so common, right? It's just like that medical gaslighting really
Yes.
is. When I first got sick, I had a bout of food poisoning and my gut just like completely fell apart after that. And I, sought out my PCP. I went to a dermatologist. Like I tried to get answers, and everyone was just like, "Yeah, this is IBS. Like this is just the way it is. Like this is your diagnosis. This is your new life." And it was
And
just
here's your
crazy to
medication.
me.
Right.
Yeah, like I'm having hair loss. I have all these crazy skin reactions all the time. Yeah, here are your creams. These are your options.
Well, can I interrupt real quick? So you had like normal digestive health, and then all of a sudden you get sick
Yeah,
and you have like
once I got
skin stuff.
Yep, yep. I got food poisoning, and then about 6 months later, the wheels just fell off of the bus.
And it wasn't
And
just your gut.
it was skin and gut are my main pathways where my body communicates the clearest, the loudest with me. I really believe that we each have these like unique pathways and ways that the body communicates the most with us, and gut and skin has always been mine.
Okay.
So that's where the majority of my reactions were. I had dermatitis all over my face. I had full body like rashes and hives all over my front and back. My gut, my digestion, my bowel movements were so bad. They were just, it was like alarmingly bad. So I finally found like an integrative doctor for the first time. And it was okay. It started to kind of like introduce me to this other way. And then I found a functional medicine doctor, and it changed my life. It took a lot of time. It took about 2 years to really like right the ship and figure out, okay, there are toxins, there are nutrient deficiencies, there are genetics at play, there's thyroid issues. I was on the wrong thyroid medication. We did stool tests. Like it was a whole body approach. And the amount of time that she spent with me, getting to know me and talk to me and connect all of these things, I was like, this isn't just changing my life, this is changing my career. So then I went back and I
You were
did
in
a
the
full
ICU at that time, right?
I was an ICU dietitian for almost a decade.
Okay.
And I loved it. Loved it. I was up in Massachusetts, where I'm from, and then I relocated to Asheville, North Carolina, and the healthcare was not the same. So these like exciting, cutting edge hospitals were not where I was. And then I had all this experience, and I found this integrative and functional program. I spent a year getting certified in that. And then I just couldn't be in the hospital after that. It just felt like so misaligned,
Yes.
It just wasn't
That's exactly
a
right.
match.
Yes.
But it was
Like
amazing.
viscerally you feel it. I remember I would pull up to the ER and I would like viscerally feel like I was having an internal panic attack.
Yeah, it felt it felt like a betrayal. It just like it did not feel like honest work anymore. It wasn't the environment where I could dive into things in the way that I wanted. And people are in a crisis. They're not in the hospital because they're there for a checkup. It's just
Right.
like sometimes it's not even like the right time to start talking about all this other stuff. They're not like ready to hear it. But I just didn't want to keep getting people at like the tail end. I wanted to get them earlier, and do more with preventative care.
So is that
So
what moment is that the moment when you just decided to like totally make the change, or you obviously did schooling for a while and then changed after
yeah,
that, or what was that transition
yeah,
like?
I got fully credentialed and board certified in integrative and functional nutrition. And then shortly after that, left the hospital and I went and worked for my first functional job was I worked for a big, well-known lab company. And they have a huge menu of functional tests. And I was on their clinical education team. So providers would call and I would walk them through the test. And it was such a great education in functional testing because when you first get into testing, you're like, this is it. This is everything. And then by the time I was done with that job a couple years later, I was like, it's a piece. It's a tool. It's
Right.
not everything. And it's really only as good as the person who's interpreting it and
Yes.
their education and their understanding of the results and their ability to not just treat the test, but treat the person behind the
Yes.
test.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
And then after you did the lab company for a while, then you started your own practice.
Yeah, I started seeing private clients. I continued to work in clinics. So I spent 4 years working in an integrative medicine clinic that specializes in reversing bone loss.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really cool. Like, I had no idea that that would end up being what it was for me. I was not like particularly interested in working in bone loss. Like, it wasn't really on my radar.
Right.
But taking a root cause approach to bone loss is involves a lot of gut health work and all of the things around integrative and functional nutrition that I love. So the diet, the lifestyle, and it honestly just came at the perfect time for me. I'm 45. I am like, in the perimenopause throes. So it was like awesome to hear about how to preserve and build bone at the perfect time rather than
Yes.
like somebody finding this out at 65. They're getting their first DEXA. They've never been on HRT. They've been out of menopause, for years now. And they're
Yes.
like, why didn't anyone ever tell me about this?
Right.
So that's
And
been really cool.
yeah, and what's cool. So this is how we met. A patient of mine actually was like, you have to meet this person. And I think she had reversed some of her bone loss, which you saw a lot of that, right? Which is most patients are
Yeah.
told you can't reverse it. You have osteoporosis. This is what it is. And like you said, they don't get their
Mm-hmm.
scan till they're 65.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, you can't fix anything that you don't know about.
Right.
So, we know that the loss of estrogen is what accelerates bone loss.
Right.
So why are we waiting until years after menopause in order to even get your first DEXA? You should be getting that in perimenopause.
Right. Right.
Get a baseline.
Right. Yeah. That's what we're starting to do here, which I just started doing the last couple of years because I was like, why am I not doing this earlier? Because I was exposed to patients and I was like, why am I not doing this earlier? One question I have is how different is your practice now and when you were in the bone health clinic compared to when you were in the ICU? Like, what are some of the a couple of major differences?
Yeah, I mean, it's the main difference is that people are and taking like an active role in their care when I'm seeing them privately versus being in a crisis situation and I'm just walking into their room and they didn't really ask for that.
Right.
So that's like the biggest thing is like people actually want to hear what I have to say.
And I'm just picturing
And
the ICU trays that people get, like with the Jello and the broth
all the
and
Ensure,
yes.
it's
The
brutal,
nastiness, yes.
brutal. Yeah, and we're not and like critically ill patients. So that's a big change. The big change is using data in through a lens of optimization, not just relying on these wide reference ranges, quote unquote normal ranges given by the lab company.
Yes.
Really, really working towards optimization and not just the elimination of symptoms, but how can we, play the long game here with your health? How can we promote longevity? And that's not just falling within the norm. It's really trying to optimize as best as you can. And then I think like just people being willing to make changes around diet and lifestyle and take supplements, all of that is a big piece of my practice because it is just so the impact is so huge.
And I'm kind of out of sync with like traditional dietitian training, but was there any, I'm sure there was a bunch of stuff you had to unlearn, but were there any big ones that like, that people are still being taught, but you had to really like just do away with?
Yeah, I mean we really don't get any education on supplements, very, very little. And it's all based on it's similar to like what a traditional doctor would get, where there's a lot of like fear-based education. There's a lot of there just isn't any confidence that is put into practitioners in a conventional setting on how to use supplements safely and effectively. It's all based on like caution. So that's why like a lot of the times like I'll have clients who will go to their doctor and be like, well, what do you think of the supplements I'm taking? And they'll be like, I think you should stop them all. And it's like such a crazy, stance, like none of them,
Right.
all of them. And then diet for sure is a huge one. So primarily in a conventional dietetic training, you're being educated on therapeutic diets for chronic conditions. This is the handout that you give to somebody who has diabetes. This is the
Yes.
handout that you give to somebody who has, heart disease. It's, there's very, very little personalization. There's very little discussion on even like if somebody has a food sensitivity. Like we never learned about food sensitivities or anything like that. It was like allergies or nothing. So definitely like the whole actual using food as medicine approach was not really a part of the conventional setting.
Right.
We're being put in these situations, whether we're in a hospital or in a community setting, where we're just giving out Ensure to everyone.
Right.
So like you can't really say that that's like good nutrition education,
No.
and then a lot of it is like you're giving these handouts that are approved by the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, which are like, I could read them now and it's just like kind of crazy information. It's just really outdated.
Right,
So
right.
I had to spend tens of thousands of dollars to unlearn a lot of what I learned in a conventional education, and then to learn more of an integrative and functional approach.
Because you probably weren't taught about paleo or low FODMAP or elimination diets or all the
Not at
different
all.
therapeutic diets that we have access to.
Yeah,
Like you had to
not
learn
at
all of
all.
those. Right. Yeah.
No, and like nothing on gut health. I mean,
Right.
truly, like I don't remember a single thing about gut health. I don't remember even like learning about a digestive enzyme supplement or stomach acid.
Right.
We weren't really taught, and I get it. It's very similar to like a conventional medicine
Very
education.
similar.
There's
Yeah.
only so much you're going to be able to cover.
Correct.
My goal isn't to be somebody's sole practitioner. My goal is to be a player on the team. And I wish that more providers who were a little nervous about an integrative or functional practitioner, I wish that they would recognize that. I'm not trying to replace anybody. I'm trying to complement the work that other people can do. So
Right.
if somebody is going to their, PCP and they're getting, the things that they would typically get offered, the prescriptions and that's kind of it, then they can go to somebody else on their team, get another kind of like approach, and then make an informed decision on their own.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just want people to, I wish that more providers would refer out to dietitians and would have a dietitian on their team or a nutritionist or somebody that was trained, because there's not enough time in a conventional medicine program to educate on diet and lifestyle. And
There's
like,
not even enough
why?
time in an integrative functional workup. I mean, that's what with my
Totally.
patients, I'm like, okay, go to do this course online, or,
Yeah.
go see someone like you, because it's like you were digging in the weeds with some other stuff and you get to the part of the diet, which is probably the most important thing, but it takes a lot of time at
Yeah,
first.
the behavior change is huge,
Huge.
huge. And if you try to throw too much at somebody too quickly, it's like the fastest way to nowhere. They're
Right.
just not going to make any move forward because it's just so overwhelming to them from the start.
Well, I was kind of curious about that. So when, like, I know you probably use different diets for every different client, but like, do you have one that you prefer? Like, are you more Mediterranean? Are you more paleo? Are you more vegetarian? I don't think you're vegetarian from what I saw on your Instagram.
I am definitely pro animal protein if
Okay.
somebody is comfortable consuming that. I think
Yep.
it can make the diet incredibly easy.
Yes.
um,
I
I
agree.
think it's much more challenging to work within the restrictions of a vegan or vegetarian diet. I can do it, and that's fine, but I think it just increases the likelihood that they're going to have heavy repetition in their diet, and that's like the main thing that I'm really trying to get into everyone's diet is more diversity and more variety. So I think the funny thing about diet is the longer I'm a dietitian, the more I really live in the gray area and I try to avoid the extremes. So
Yes.
I try to avoid the extreme like a vegan diet. I try to avoid the extreme like a carnivore diet. And I
Right.
really think it's like, it's just kind of the middle, the common denominators of these things, which are often like eating a lot of plants, eating a lot of variety, getting plenty of fiber, and really focusing on quality, which I think used to be something that was like a if you can recommendation, where now I'm just much more like, I think, direct about it. We've had a lot of changes with like environmental policy that are really impacting the safety of the food that we're
Yes.
consuming. So I do think that it's really important for people, whenever possible, to try to prioritize grass-fed meat, organic poultry. Like if you can get pasture raised, that's great. Get
Right.
comfortable with farmers, go to farmers
Yes.
markets. Like I think the variety and the enough fiber are and enough protein are probably like my foundational things that I try to work on with everyone.
Yeah, and that sounds exactly how I work. And then if you have a patient who has SIBO and they need to do a temporary low FODMAP situation, or
Yep.
if they need
Yep.
to do a higher protein, lower carb because they need to lose weight, like you can pitch based on their
Yeah.
needs. Yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
And you're
And
Go
just
ahead.
like relating it to the person, relating it to their symptoms. If I'm using a therapeutic diet, I'm using it for a reason. I'm always trying to communicate with this person like, this isn't necessarily going to be a lifestyle for you. Sometimes I don't utilize a low FODMAP diet when I'm treating for SIBO. Sometimes I'll only use
Same.
it when they really need the symptom control. But if they don't need the symptom control, or the protocol is working, I try to like maybe do like more of a FODMAP light diet, where like, sure, we're not going to like throw gas on the fire or anything, but a FODMAP diet is so hard to
So
follow,
hard.
especially longer term, which is often like SIBO. You need multiple rounds of treatment most of the time, and it's a longer term situation. So,
Yeah, and I'm sure you've seen this with clients, that the people who go on these restrictive diets, it becomes almost a disease. It's
mm-hmm.
like the fixation on, oh, I can't have this. It's going to make me sick. I can't do this. It's like a fixation on the food. And sometimes it's legit, but oftentimes it just becomes its own like neuroses.
Yeah, you can develop a lot of food fear.
Hmm.
A health history is really important here. Do they have a history of disordered eating, which I feel like is every female ever I've worked with, so
Right,
like
right.
to what degree, how long ago
Not
was
bad at
that,
it.
Yeah, but like we see this when people, when autoimmune paleo diet was really like
Yes.
having its heyday. And then people were following it for such an extended period of time, and their tolerance was getting less and less and less, and they developed what's called a loss of oral tolerance, where now they can eat 5 different foods, and
Right.
it's just totally backfired on them.
Yes. Yeah. No, I see that all the time. So what is your take on, or actually, I'm going to change that. Um, what are your favorite tests that you use?
I mean, a stool test is my absolute favorite.
They're amazing.
That's by far the one that I do the most. I just think you can get so much data from that.
So
A
much.
lot of times people will be like, "Well, can I ask my, primary care for a stool test?" That is just going to look for infections. A
Right.
functional stool test is going to look for all of those infections, but also all the functions of the gut, digestion and absorption. The immune system, at least 70%, is found in and around the gut. Gut metabolites like short chain fatty acids, markers of gut inflammation. Like it just really gives you so much
It's
insight
incredible.
into the foundation that is the gut.
And how heavily do you go into supplements? Because I get some patients who come in and they've seen an outside practitioner and they're on like 20 supplements for their gut. And I'm like, this is not sustainable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you
I
approach that?
definitely utilize supplements for sure. And I would say all of my patients,
Same.
whether it's something where I'm just, doing comprehensive blood work and identifying nutrient needs, or they need some help with like lowering their lipids, or, they need minerals, like all of the foundational stuff. Like I just don't see people get that in optimal amounts through diet alone, even if your digestion and absorption is on point. I
I
just
agree.
don't see it
I
happen.
don't either.
As you get older, I think the gap between what you're able to consume and absorb through your diet and what's optimal just gets bigger. Your needs get more, like your genetics start to like kind of rear their ugly head a little bit. You start to see things come out in the wash more. So I definitely feel like foundational supplements I'm really big on. In terms of supplements for a protocol, I always work in phases. I will typically, like, say somebody has a bacterial overgrowth, and it's something that, because of their symptoms and the whole clinical picture and the test, is something that we want to go ahead and treat. I will typically start with like a phase 1, where that's where we're going to do more of like the heavy gut cleanup. Phase 2 is where we're going to come in after that, and we're going to really work on the gut lining and prebiotics and probiotics. And then a maintenance phase. What happens when all of this is done? A maintenance phase is one of the things that I think is missing so often from a
It
lot of the
is.
protocols that I see. It's like, how do we keep things in a good place? And I think the maintenance phase relies heavily on what someone's diet is. Do we need a prebiotic because you're not eating enough fiber or there's issues getting enough variety? Do we need a probiotic, or do you like fermented foods and eat them regularly? I
Right.
want to make my maintenance plan completely personalized to that client and what feels realistic for them. I like sauerkraut. Am I eating sauerkraut every day? I am not. I am not personally. I am taking a maintenance dose of a probiotic, and I'm eating fermented foods when I can and when I enjoy them. And I think that, you're able to kind of like personalize it in that way.
And do you I'm trying to do you like to repeat the stool testing after they've done one? Do you tend to do another one just to see how much it's cleaned up?
That's a great question, and I think I will depend it on resources and what we were actually treating. So, they're not cheap. So a lot of the times, like if I've gone through a protocol with somebody and things are good, they feel good, I let them be good. I have faith that like what the work that we did was effective. I
Yes.
let how their body is communicating with us, like kind of like dictate the course, and I just let it be good. If somebody had a lot of digestive insufficiencies, I will at least want to see another stool test, within, I'd say, 8 months to a year and a half after that. I want to know because digestive capacity can change so much. I always try to tell people the recommendations are not a set it and forget it. I can't speak in absolutes based on a single stool test. I
Right.
need to see patterns over time to say your digestion has completely bounced back, or yeah, you still kind of would benefit from ongoing digestive support, whatever that might look like for that person. If there was a big infection, or if maybe we went through the protocol and like they got some improvement, but there's still some things that are lingering, then yeah, I think repeating a stool test at that point and getting more data is really smart.
I always get excited when I repeat one and you can see how much better it is.
Oh, it's the
I'm always
best.
like,
It's the
yay!
best.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
That's my favorite part.
Yep.
And do you think one of my biggest issues is like I do the stool test and I see something that they need like a GI doctor to see the patient for,
Mm-hmm.
where blood in their stool, high calprotectin, H. pylori. I want them to get scoped. And I see them poo-pooing the test. They're like, they will not accept the data at all. Like, do you see
Yep.
that becoming more mainstream at any point in time with any of these companies? Because it's legit
I
data. It's
mean,
not like they're pulling it out of the
yeah,
clouds.
I would love for it to be more accepted. I do always warn my patients, that this isn't something that they're necessarily going to recognize, and they might just kind of toss it to the side and really
Right.
not even engage in a conversation about your findings. And I just kind of like try to prepare them as best as I can, and say like, look, we still have to do our due diligence. There was something on your test that we have to work up. So let them do what they are good at doing. And then we can continue to do the stuff that we know we are good at doing.
Yeah, I know it's really frustrating. But I can tell you when I was an ER doctor, if a patient brought in some weird functional medicine lab, this is before I knew anything about it, I would totally poo-pooed it. Or when they were on a lot of
Yeah.
supplements, I was like, oh, they're crazy. Like, so I
Yeah.
had to go through my own transition as well to finally understand that this this type of medicine is legit and amazing, obviously. Um, the other thing I was really interested in on your website was like the 4 pillars that you talk about. So it's not just food, it's not just gut health. You go into
Mm.
lifestyle, you go into sleep, you go into mindset. I mean,
Hmm.
how much of that do you do with your patients one on one?
Yeah, the mindset piece is huge, right? Because like if somebody's really been through it for a long time and they haven't gotten answers and they've just like really come up to a lot of dead ends with different practitioners, they're kind of exhausted at that point. They don't believe that healing is possible for
Hmm.
them. They think that they're going to just stay sick and maybe they could get a little bit better, but that idea of being well again, it just doesn't feel as possible for them. And I've found that when people don't believe in their ability to heal, it's going to be really hard
Yep.
for us to see huge changes. And it's also just mentally and emotionally exhausting to struggle physically. So I think like it's like what we were saying before about having your healthcare team. I really want to be able to identify if somebody is struggling or if they have really negative thoughts and beliefs around health and their body that are going to start to stand in our way. So I can encourage them to go talk to a therapist and explain to them. And I've seen this in multiple clients, the people who are seeing a therapist at the same time as doing work on their health, it's always, the results are always better. And I think
That's a really
that's
good
really
point.
powerful. Like
That's really
that's just
powerful.
that's huge. So I always want to pay attention to mindset. I want to let somebody kind of dictate the pace a little bit. I want it to feel like um, that I'm not throwing so much at them at once that they just want to give up. I want to try to instill some confidence in them early on. And that might mean me going way slower than I want and just, kind of like trying to get them to see the small wins and help them to feel like, okay, like maybe things are moving in the right direction. So I think that's a big piece of it, is the mindset.
Yeah, it is. So I have patients sometimes where I'm like, God, I really didn't do much for them. But in retrospect, I realized that the majority of the healing that they had with me was because I just listened and believed
Yeah.
them. Like literally,
Yeah.
like they've been told by so many doctors that it's nothing, you have nothing wrong with you. And I'm like, oh no, you have this, 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 and this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that hard to fix. And it's just the knowledge that someone actually, or appreciation that someone actually believes them and is seeing them. And then they get better.
Totally.
I'm like, that's amazing.
I hear that all the time. Like, God, it just feels so good to talk to somebody that is like, it feels like you're on their team. They
Right.
really, really feel that. And they just finally feel listened to, which is awesome.
Yeah. And I think people like us get a bad rap because the traditional world thinks like, and this is how I used to look at it. I'd be like, oh, they're just making stuff up, all that detox stuff and heavy metal and gut health. I'm like, they're just like making stuff up to sell supplements and make money.
Mm-hmm.
Until I got into it and I started doing it and I was like, it actually works. It actually works really well. So
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think it's getting better, obviously, as time goes on and it's becoming more mainstream. It's very, very nice. I'm sure you're experiencing the same thing because probably when you started was more fringy, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was
So
a lot harder to kind of like explain to people necessarily, what you were doing.
yes.
And and they're like, well, my doctor has never mentioned anything like that to me
Right.
before. So it's like I have a little bit of a hard time like listening to a dietitian like, talk
Right.
to me about all this stuff. Yeah.
I remember, I mean, when I used to talk to patients, when I first would see them, I think I would spend 10 minutes describing what integrative and functional medicine are. And now I'll just say, hey, do you know what that is? And they're always like, oh, yeah, I do. And I give them like a
Hmm.
5-second spiel on our clinic and then I move into their treatment. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
So I'm trying to think what else I want to ask you. Oh, I did want to know what do you eat every day? That's a selfish question for me. Like what's a typical
Yeah.
breakfast, lunch, and dinner and snacks?
I tend to change seasonally. I like to do like a little bit of a different thing, going into the summer. So
Yes.
right now I'm generally alternating between I do a yogurt bowl with fresh berries. I mix in some protein powder into the yogurt, some cinnamon, a little bit of like crunchy stuff on top. I'll do that one day. Another day I'll do overnight oats, which I love. Kind of the same formula. I'm adding a protein powder to that so that I'm actually getting like adequate protein in there with the oats. I'm adding some berries. So I love that. I am a farmer's market junkie.
Okay.
So I have been going to the farmer's market. I worked at farms throughout college. And I have been posting my weekly market hauls for
Yes.
almost 20 years.
Have you
I
really?
am just, yeah. Back when like people had MySpace, I
Oh
was
my God.
posting them on MySpace. So
They're really pretty. Are you
really,
mostly on Instagram? Like it's mostly on Instagram,
yeah,
correct? Yeah.
yep.
It's
It's all on
beautiful feed.
Instagram right now.
Beautiful.
I love it. And I go way overboard. I have zero self-control. You would think I'm feeding like a family of 7. It's like me and my partner. He's like, Kyle, enough with the lettuce.
Yes.
So I will have a big salad with some protein on top. I make a homemade balsamic and miso dressing that I just like am obsessed with, and a nice little way
That
to
sounds
sneak
so
in
good.
some fermented foods. And then dinner is kind of like a free for all. I am a big meal prepper. I always like to have my breakfast and lunch like ready to go. I don't want to think about it during my workday or before my workday. And then at night, we just kind of like see how we feel. It's usually like some protein and veggie forward meal with some
Mhm.
kind of like yummy starch.
Yeah. And then when you said seasonally, I'm assuming it's like more of the berries and the fruits in the summer. Winter, you start getting into the root vegetables and the squashes and soups and things like that. Like you just, that's what I love. I love seasonal eating. I love it so much. You just literally like
Same.
what's at the farmer's market and that's what I should be eating right now.
That's right. I don't ever figure out what I'm going to make for the week. I shop first. I buy what looks good and what I'm excited about. Then I come home and I'm like, what am I going to do with all of this?
Yeah. Yep.
And this is like, this is a nice way of viewing variety too, because I think a lot of times people think of when I say eat more variety or get more variety in your diet, they're like, they assume that it means that you constantly have to be coming up with new ideas. I'm not doing that at all. I'm rarely reinventing the wheel here. I have my staples, and all I'm doing is swapping out the ingredients for whatever is in season. My salads are still salads in the winter. They just look different. Maybe they have massaged kale. Maybe they have some, like, some butternut squash on there, like some more, different things that are available at that time of year. Same thing with like the fruits that rotate in and out of the house and the veggies. I just try to rinse and repeat a lot of the same recipes, but just swapping out the ingredients.
How easy is it for us to find your miso dressing recipe?
I need to post it again because
Can you?
honestly, it's phenomenal.
I want to
I
see
love
it.
it so much. I'm like a mad scientist. I like have it like all to the gram, So I just like I have my food scale out and I make a huge bottle of it and a huge batch at a time, and I love it so much. So I will definitely do that.
Okay, because you had some cooking education too, Culinary Nutrition Expert. Is that kind of like cooking
Yeah,
school in a way?
this was a really, really fun program that I did where it was, for a minute there, I was like, maybe I want to teach cooking classes to people and like, from a dietitian and kind of have that spin on it. Um, and so I found this culinary nutrition program. It was online, it wasn't in person, but you had like homework each week where you would have to cook different things and speak to the, medicinal ingredients and why they could be used in someone. It was just fun, to be honest with you. But that also helped me just to kind of like utilize this passion that I have for farmers markets and how can I translate that into my work with clients.
I forgot what the program was. I did a nutrition class at the Culinary Institute of America 2 years ago, same kind of thing. And I was like, I got into this point where I'm like, same thing. Maybe I want to have cooking classes. Maybe. And then you get back to, we're like, okay, no, I am a doctor. I'm going to do what I was trained to do. And then I'm going to
Yeah,
infuse it, but it's infused
same.
through everything I do. It's infused in my personal life. It's infused in my clinical life. So like those kind of experiences are priceless.
Yeah.
Um, okay. I had kind of got through all the questions I wanted to ask you about. I think what's really important for my audience is how can people find you? Because Kyle just let me know that she just reopened up her practice. It had been closed for a couple of years. Not
Mm-hmm.
closed, not totally closed, but closed to new clients or patients.
Yep.
So how can
Yeah.
people find you? And we'll link it in the show notes too.
My website is rootdownnutrition.com. My Instagram is rootdownnutrition. If you want to see my insane market hauls every week. And I'm really working with people on gut health, metabolic health, heart health, bone health, optimization, like really just kind of a mix and match of different things. So we could do blood work, we could do functional testing like a stool test. I try to keep things really, really easy. I've really tried to make this model accessible to all, so that they can meet with me as often as they want.
And you could also, like, if someone was seeing me and I was doing the stool testing and the blood testing and they were local here, they could still work with you on the nutrition piece and maybe some of the
Yeah,
lifestyle
absolutely.
pieces and get your input on their lab
Absolutely.
results and things like that.
Yeah,
So,
the beauty of telehealth,
I know it's amazing. It's
it's
amazing.
amazing.
And I wish I could do more telehealth. We have the rules and regulations though. Is there anything else you would want to share that we didn't cover?
I think if I had to give any takeaways, they would definitely be gut health focused. So one of my biggest takeaways for people outside of variety, which we talked about, is digestive insufficiencies. So this is you having low stomach acid, you having low digestive enzymes, and this is a whole domino effect that happens in the body that allows us to properly digest and absorb our food. And one thing that people don't realize is how huge stress impacts that. whole process. So when you're having a meal, trying to limit distractions, not watching the news or anything stressful while you're eating, trying not to multitask, which I know is so hard during your lunch break, and catch up
So
on
hard.
work while you're trying to eat. Really try to have a focus on some sacred meal times. 10, 15 minutes of just like focusing on your food and allowing that process to work optimally is one of the greatest tools that we can use to make sure that we don't have this list of 20 different supplements, because we're able to digest and absorb the nutrients from our food better. We don't have this accelerated bone loss because, again, we're able to absorb things better. It's really like the diet is only going to be as good as your ability to digest and absorb your food.
Okay, that was you. I have to tell you that, like in my clinic, one of our naturopathic doctors is so good about, she sits in the lunch room for at least 20 minutes. She just chats
Love
with the
it.
staff. She's eating her lunch. I'm like running in there, and then I'm running back to my room because I've got 20 patient
Yeah.
questions to answer, and I've got a patient show like, and I see her, and every time I'm like, okay, Lynn, you can spare 5 minutes, just 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm getting better at it, but like it's so good to hear you say that, because it's so obvious to me,
Yeah.
to our audience, maybe not so obvious, but like so important in so
And
many
we see
ways.
this with people when people wear a continuous glucose monitor. Same thing. Why are you spiking at lunch? Why are you spiking at lunch? We're looking at their meal. Their meal looks great. We ask them what they're doing. They're catching up on work. All we do is tell them to just take that same exact lunch and just actually take a lunch break, and their blood sugar is completely different.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
One last question, because you made me think of it. Do you talk to people a lot about like walking after meals?
I love
Yeah.
that. I think that's such a, it's like a great habit stack. Get your steps in, get a little bit of that like digestive process going. It has a great impact on blood sugar. It doesn't have to be a lot. It could be like a 10-minute walk, and
Yeah.
it hits a lot of things.
Cool. Okay, cool. I started doing that more recently, and it's like, I can't believe how much, like, I don't get crazy bloated, but you just get a little full. And then by the end of your little
Yeah.
walk, you're like, oh, I feel pretty normal now. It's pretty
Yep.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Kyle, I so much appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today. We're going to watch out for your miso dressing recipe on your Instagram.
Okay.
I'm going to hold you to that. And I know that my audience is really going to appreciate it. When I have guests on, they come in as my patients. They're like, oh, I love that episode. So I think, what you shared was going to help a lot of people. So I really appreciate it. And hopefully some of them find their way to you in your clinic.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully we can connect soon.
Okay. Sounds good. Bye.